We just received news that a group of members of the Security Council is conducting a meeting. It's being held behind closed doors. Nothing else is known. And during the course of the day, several important ITAR-TASS telegrams arrived from Chechnya. Jahar Dudayev gave his forces the order to cease fire and withdraw by 1 kilometer from the line of contact with Russian troops. Later, as expected, the statement of the president of Chechnya followed, in which it suggested that combat activity be ceased, that Russian troops be withdrawn from the territory of Chechnya, and without any preliminary conditions begin talks on the highest level possible. Later, information agencies reported that the Vice Premier Nikolai Yegorov was urgently called to Moscow, and also all force ministers returned to Moscow, Pavel Grachev, Viktor Yerin and Sergei Stepashin. And now in detail about how events unfolded in Chechnya. According to information arriving from the zone of the Chechen conflict, in the dramatic situation which developed in the last days around Grozny, certain improvements were finally noted. And they're connected foremost with yesterday's address of Boris Yeltsin to the residents of the Chechnya Republic. I'll remind you that it contains another appeal to cease fire and sit at the dialogue tables without any preconditions. The President of Russia again extended by 48 hours the deadline for voluntary relinquishing of arms and to cease resisting law enforcement forces. It's fully understandable to forcefully silence all weapons blaring in Chechnya today is not simple. This is approximately 100 tanks, combat vehicles, 150 artillery and shell installations, and 50,000 units of firearms. It won't be easy to overcome barriers in relations which surfaced the feeling of revenge and suspicion as well. Although today everyone in Russia hopes that in the end common sense should triumph and not senseless bloodshed. This conclusion is being drawn by those who yesterday shot their own compatriots, Russians, in military uniforms. According to news from Grozny this morning, in the suburbs of the city, several armed clashes occurred between groups of local people who have come to their senses, who have decided to return to their villages, and brazen gunmen who intend to stand to the end. It seems that certain changes occurred in the position of the Chechen leadership as well. At 3 o'clock, Jahar Dudayev gave orders to his forces to cease fire and withdraw by 1 kilometer from the line of contact with Russian forces, but advised to carefully watch the adversary and, if he attempts to move forward, to open fire. In Dudayev's orders, there are alternative options dictated by doubts in the sincerity of Moscow's actions. According to reports from Chechnya, among the regular citizens who by will of fate or by deception were involved in war, the question of surrendering weapons is no less intense, and not because they don't know where to surrender their weapons, although 30 points have been set up to receive them. If previously an attribute of the mountain Cossacks was the dagger, then lately, under the pretext of defending honor and dignity, it's been replaced by cannons and grape-shot-type hail projectile systems. I'll add that all these weapons ended up in Chechnya through various channels, but most important, unlawfully. And as the tragic events have demonstrated, it only worsened the already volatile situation near the conflict. As I've already said, the Prime Minister of Russia announced readiness to meet with Dudayev in order to resolve the Chechen crisis, but will not postpone the date of his official visit to India, which is scheduled for the 21st of December. This, a correspondent of ITAR-TASS learned from well-informed sources within the government of Russia. And hence, if the talks do occur, they must be held no later than the beginning of next week. In the Federative Council and in the State Duma of Russia, today they also spoke about methods to resolve the Chechen crisis, although not only about that, details from our correspondents. An unscheduled session of the Federative Council began with the election of the 19th last member of the Constitutional Court. Only the court can give a legal assessment to the Chechen events. The discussion of the candidacy, the president had recommended to that post the aide to the head of his administration, Robert Seville, was quite quick, and he was not endorsed. That means that the Constitutional Court, as previously, can't begin to function. During the break, the chairman of the chamber acquainted journalists with his plan to regularize the Chechnya situation. Vladimir Shumeka offers to immediately cease fire and simultaneously begin withdrawing Russian troops and disarming Chechen formations. The Republic must be prepared for the free expression of the will of the citizens to conduct elections in order that it should return to constitutionality and lawfulness. Against expectations, the session on the Chechen problem was open. There's nothing to hide. All is clear anyway, said Aksarbek Galazov. Incidentally, it turned out that not everything was clear to everyone. Deputies had hoped the situation would be clarified by the force ministers and other responsible figures of high rank invited to the meeting, but some couldn't come and some sent their secondary deputies. Vladimir Shumeka voiced his view that he was not surprised by this in any way. If there is no legal responsibility to show up, then it's not surprising that no one came to take the heat for everyone else. Yet the deputies decided to invite the Prime Minister to the session when he has the time. The deputy, Tikhamirov, said that a plan to resolve the crisis will be impossible for the Federative Council to develop. Therefore, at least one must give a political assessment of events. Incidentally, today the resolution about the situation in Chechnya was not adopted after all. The observing mission of the deputies of the State Duma flew today to the zone of the conflict. The mission was headed by the chairman of the Committee of Organizing the Work of the Duma, Vladimir Bauer. Those delegations, which were already there, and information which we are receiving, in a one-sided way, it casts light on that conflict. Sending its colleagues to the Northern Caucasus, the deputy chamber almost ignored the situation in Chechnya. The Duma refused to examine the draft resolution in which it was suggested to support the initiative of the president aimed at ceasefire and resuming talks. Speaking to deputies of the Duma today was the chairman of the National Assembly of France, Philippe Séguin. The Russian-Franco communiqué was signed, which provides for experience exchange in legislative work. The need to study the European parliamentary traditions does exist. Today, the Duma again began its session with a tussle. One of the deputies from the LDPR in his speech used the phrase people with specific surnames. Representatives of Russia's Choice accused him of anti-Semitism and threatened him with lawsuits. Yesterday's clash was unexpectedly continued at the podium between the deputies of Russia's Choice and supporters of Vladimir Zhirinovsky. The deputy, Marachev, came today in a bulletproof vest. Please ask Mr. Gaidar not to attack me today. I'm wearing a bulletproof vest. Today, suggestions were heard not to use microphones in the State Duma to settle personal factional disputes, but these admonitions evidently were not supported by deputies. And again, the serious. A criminal case has been launched in the matter of the attack on Russian military servicemen on the territory of Ingushetia. This was stated today by the acting Prosecutor General of Russia, Alexei Yulushenko. The basis for filing this matter were inquiries conducted by the prosecutor's office on the site of occurrences. Again, it's noted that more than 2,000 local residents, shielded by women and children, blockaded a vehicle convoy of Russian troops at that time under the direction of armed individuals. Some vehicles were turned over, some burned. Soldiers were beaten, and in the same situation was the medical convoy. Women paramedics were also beaten. In the framework of this same criminal case, circumstances are being verified, as stated in the report of the President of Ingushetia, Ruslan Aushev, directed to the Prosecutor General of Russia. Humanitarian aid continues to arrive in Chechnya. Through the Red Cross, doctors have flown out there. Our film crew went along with them to Mozdok. In regions bordering with Chechnya, a calm situation remains, yet hospitals are ready to take in injured, and to the administration of the Stavropol Rim to receive refugees from Chechnya. Funds were allocated, food banks were filled, and the Stavropolya, Krasnodar and Rostov areas are preparing to send cargo with humanitarian aid. Today, a caravan of tractor trailers with foods, cans and warm clothing left Stavropolya for Chechnya. In the administration of Adygea, information was denied about preparing Adygeian volunteers to support the Dudayev regime. Regarding the dialogue process, the president of Adygea feels that Maikop could be the ideal site for dialogues. Dagestan was and remains a supporter of a peaceful resolution of the Chechen conflict. It was stated at a press conference today in Moscow by representatives of the leadership of the republic. They feel it's enough to strike a match to ignite a fire in the Caucasus, and therefore, to date, Dagestan has attempted to overcome instability in that region. Now, the republic, in any capacity, is ready to participate in peace talks, because in the opinion of the Dagestanis, not all peaceful means or methods have been yet exhausted. We are hopeful that Russian leadership will be able to find and undertake responsible measures so that on Chechen land, on the land of our neighbor, bloodshed will stop and we'll resolve this problem in a peaceful way.